Hey guys, so I guess we're going to look at front suspension now. We've done everything underneath. We got most of the stuff done at the top of this Trailblazer. Unfortunately, we have to get these axles out. That front diff that axle's going into is coming out with the engine because it's attached to the oil pan. So we need to get that out. We're going to have to take both sides apart and get both these half shafts out. We'll get started with the brake caliper. So what we're going to do is we're going to loosen these bolts here first. We have one here. We have one here. They're 13 mil. Okay, so we undid that caliper and we lifted it up. But before we tie it up, where it's out of the way, there's two bolts back here. There's a bracket with the brake line. These are both 10 millimeter bolts. And we're going to see if I can just take those out right now. You gotta watch these. They could be pretty rusty and maybe break off. So if they don't feel right, just leave them and try and work them back and forth. On a side note, when removing that bracket, one of the other things you want to remember here is the ABS line. And the reason I bring this up right now, sorry, we just need to squeeze this. Oops, I wish I would have done it before. One of the ABS line plastic clips is inside the brake bracket. So if we just squeeze these, we can push that out. This is just a push and clip for the ABS cable. And we'll do that right now with a pair of pliers. Okay, so we removed the caliper. We've tied it up. And basically I just use a tarp strap. I just tied it to 2 points on the A-arm. Kind of out of the way because again we're taking out that half shaft. And we still have to undo that. So we just want it out of the way. We want no tension or anything. We want it loose so we don't disturb the line or damage anything. Okay. Then we got to take off the caliper bracket. These bolts are usually quite tight. So if you don't have a good impact or electric tool, might get yourself a little snipe if you just have a small set, but they're 18 mil. And we'll remove these and the brake pads. Okay, so now we removed the caliper bracket and the rotor. Gives us a pretty good view of what we're going for in there. Okay, so now we have the two ball joints and the tie rod end, and we'll remove this axle nut here. I use a 36 millimeter on my Milwaukee 1/2-inch impact. Okay, so now we're going to take both of these cotter pins out, the one on the bottom ball joint and the one here. Once we remove those, we'll remove all the clips for the ABS line here. Remember when pulling these out, that if you have some new ones to put in, I put in new ones. These are pretty rusty and corroded. So just a tip for you. If you have the opportunity to get some new ones, get some new ones. Okay, so remove the cotter pin. It's a 21 millimeter castle nut. We loosen that off. Then we just tapped it here 3 taps with a 3-pound hammer, and off it came. You want to use a 3 or 5 pound hammer usually on these. Sometimes I find guys use small ones and they're hammering forever. Just a little tip. Anyway, now that we got that off, we'll continue with the upper ball joint and the ABS line. Okay, so obviously the ABS line fits in here, and there's a gray tab that goes in here and locks this lock into place, so you can't depress it down. Then you have an attachment here on the frame. I just use a trim remover tool for that. Usually I'll open up the clip, but I didn't. Then up here, I'll just open that one up and take it out. Right here, it's the same. Let me get rid of that light. It's the same, just open the clip up. It's just a little snap clip. Drop it out. Okay, now we can drop the ABS line out of the way. We don't have to worry about pinching it or kinking it somewhere or having a problem. So that's done. So basically, we have our top ball joint to get out. Now, if we have enough room and we can move this axle back far enough, I don't think we can with the bottom ball joint in place. I can't remember. I haven't done one of these in quite some time. But anyway, we're going to just get two 15 millimeters and pop that apart. Alright, so once you pop that nut and bolt out, don't catch your rubber. Pry up evenly. It'll usually come out pretty easily. Might have to hit it down a couple times and back up, but it's not usually an issue. So we'll get that out, and then we'll see how much room we have to see if we can get this axle to move. Actually, one more thing. Before you struggle with that and use a pry bar or pinch the rubber boot for the ball joint, you could just tap it up with a hammer. Stretch your ball joint, make sure it's good. This one's getting close to needing replacement. Alright, let's move on. Okay, so we did unloosen the bolt down here. It was 24 mil. Gave it a couple taps right here with the old 3-pound hammer. And it fell down, so take it out of there, I guess. Okay, so we just dropped that out of the ball joint and slid it out of the axle. So here's the axle shaft we need to remove. We have full exposure to it. Now these things have a lock ring on the other end. And a lot of the time when you try and pull them out, they won't come out. I just tried several times here of moving it in and out. And like I say, it's locked in that lock ring. You can hear it. So I'm gonna get underneath, get a hammer and a bar and give it a tap. Knock it out of there, and that'll be this side. We'll continue on with the other side. Okay guys, our axle slid out. There's that lock ring on the end I was talking about. There's my bar and hammer I was using. It took a little bit to get it out. One of the neat things about watching people work on YouTube or on TV is it looks so easy until you're actually doing it. But some of these axles are a real pain to come out. Some of them aren't. Just kind of hit and miss, man. There's no real rhyme or reason to it usually. Stuff that's usually in grease and not in oil can be tougher as well, but I actually found them both to be tough over the years. But there's all kinds of things you can do. You don't need to use a bar and a sledgehammer. For instance, you can buy a longer slide hammer with a C, a big C, and it'll just slip in between here and the diff, and sometimes that brings the stuff out a little bit easier. But you know what? You can buy tools for everything you're doing along the way, and you still won't have them all. It's just one of those things. If it works for you, that's great. If it's a one-time deal, you probably don't want to be doing that. Okay guys, so I'm going to do a quick recap. So we started underneath, removed everything underneath. We removed the front suspension on this side and removed the axle, and we're going to change the seal and the diff housing as well when we have it apart. So there's our parts. Okay. Then we came around. There's the axle for the passenger side, and everything's apart on the passenger side as well. Both axles had a certain level of difficulty coming out, but it was probably their first time they ever came out as well. And like I like to remind everybody, you have your little ring on the end here, and some are just tighter than others. I was going to get ready to pull this engine out. I was looking around and realized that how the pan is shaped at the bottom, if you can look underneath the filter, you can see the drain plug. And it's kind of at a 45-degree angle, the oil pan. So I have to come forward and up a certain distance in order to clear all that. And I was looking at the intake manifold, and I don't think I have enough clearance. I may or I may not. So I'm just going to take the intake manifold off. There's 10 bolts to remove that. Plus it'll be easier to hook up the engine and learn a little bit about that as I'm doing it, because obviously there's we can't go to the very back. We're gonna have to do something off the side, whether it be with the exhaust or I'm not sure yet. We'll have to find a way to hook it up. So I'm gonna remove that manifold. And of course, just a reminder, we're gonna be removing the whole motor mount, because obviously, as you can see where the round part is, where the cushion isolator is, we need to remove this side anyway, unless we take the front diff out. It would just hit on the way up. So we're going to remove those motor mounts as well from the frame, and then we'll undo them from the isolators and pull them up. Real quick, here's a view of the intake manifold. I just thought about that after. So you got 10 bolts. It's 1, 1, 2, 1. And in behind the hose there's a bolt. And on the bottom of the hose. Then another one. Then 2 more. Then the back one. That back one's a bit of a bear. There is not a lot of room in there. A lot of people suggest using a wobbly socket. I went through the wheel well with a longer extension and a swivel on a 1/4 inch, and was able to get it out doing it that way. Okay, so we're going to take these coil strut assemblies out so we can get the motor mount bolts that are attached to the frame. We've looked at them before. There's 2 on the side. There's one behind the assembly there. So we're going to get those out. It's easier to access everything. All right, we've removed the intake manifold, and we kind of needed to. It actually will make things a little bit easier. Even something as little as reinstalling the starter will be quite a bit easier. But I didn't see a way to get the intake, or pardon me, get the engine out without dragging it all the way across the lining of the firewall there. There's not enough room to pull the engine forward to clear the intake, and right after you pull the engine forward, you have to come up quite a ways to, as you can see, quite a ways down there would be the drain plug. It's doesn't look like a lot here, but you'd have to come up quite a ways to clear everything. There wasn't enough room with the intake manifold on, so it had to come off. But right now we'll remove those coil strut assemblies and continue on. Okay, so we just unhooked everything on this side. We had a purge solenoid. We had 3 ground wires, these little guys like this. We had the negative wire for the battery. We had 3 sensors, 2 of them being NOx sensors. Obviously we have a heater hose there. We'll undo there as well. We had a block heater. But find those 3 ground straps that are hooked up. They're all bolted to the block. If you see the bolts sticking out of the block there, there's a couple holes below that. Those are just holes for little ground straps. I've kind of tied everything up here to make some room. Okay. On the other side, there wasn't too much there. There's a strap down there, like a metal strap for the cooling lines, and then we have we did that bolt there for the power steering lines, so we can move them around. What we don't want to do is get those caught and bend them up and have to fix them later, right? So, if you see the 4x4 down there, the actuator part, I'm going to buzz those 4 bolts out and see if I can get that out of there. And then I don't have to worry about it grabbing those lines on the way up. Other than that, we have cooling lines, and we're going to pull it out. Okay, so we're just pulling the engine out of this thing right now. So a couple things here. In the back, there's a bolt there on those on that plastic piece. And it's a 15 mil, and it's bolted to the back of the cylinder head, and then the other part has a push plug on it. Take those out so you don't damage them or break it, because it looks like you don't want to break those plastic lines. So I just wanted to bring that up. The exhaust will be in the way. It'll be hitting that part of the block right there all the way. So just carefully bring it up. It's not a big deal. Okay. You're going to be on a bit of an angle here, trying to get, that was the oil pan, the way I was talking about. It didn't have far to come forward. It has to come a long ways up. On this side, we need to get rid of all of the wiring, if you remember correctly. There's nothing else left. The only thing that was left that could be a little bit of a problem is the one heater hose. It's right here. I just have it moved to the side. Other than that, it comes out at a bit of an angle. After spending so much time trying to figure out how to get this engine out, I used the factory alternator bracket. And I just used a hook at the end of the exhaust manifold. This engine's just not that heavy. I don't know why I'm worried about it so much. It's fine, as long as you're not tugging on it or it's stuck, you'll be fine. Anyway, I'm gonna keep pulling it out. Okay, so the engine's out. Here's some, So it did drop a valve, which is what I suspected. There's the valve seat as well, or part of it. That's unfortunate. Anyway, let's take a quick look here. Here's Here's where that 15 mil bolt is. Again, you can see it sticking out of the back, that top plastic piece. We didn't damage anything pulling it out. All the wiring's good. The cooling line made it. So that's good. We know we can move that. So we'll put those transmission bolts back in at the top because that's part of that bracket. They'll be easy to reinstall. Shouldn't see too many problems. Earlier today I mentioned I was going to take the actuator. Sorry guys, I don't have a light. I pulled the actuator off of the passenger side. It just gave me a little more clearance for moving stuff around. I didn't want to hit the cooling lines on the way out and bend them. We'll transfer over all the stuff from this engine to our replacement engine, and we'll put it back in.